All right, we're turning now to Illinois politics. Lawmakers are approaching the end of this year's legislative session in just a few weeks. So last Monday, we spoke about the general anxiety lawmakers are feeling this year over that budget that needs to be finalized in a very money-tight year. And joining us now to break this all down is Ben Zielinski, State House reporter for Capitol News, Illinois. All right, Ben, let's start with a general budget update. Last week, you told us that lawmakers are feeling a lot of anxiety. How about this week? What are some of the concerns that you're hearing?
Really, it's that we're getting down to crunch time here. Illinois lawmakers, they face a May 31st deadline to pass a new budget that would take effect on July 1st with a simple majority vote. And reaching that simple majority vote is kind of the challenge here, because if it requires a greater number of votes, a 3/5 majority, then lawmakers could be looking at some really hard decisions in order to actually get a budget across the finish line. So they got some good news today on the budget front that the current fiscal year is expecting about $300 million more in revenue than was projected even just a few months ago. And then even next year, lawmakers are actually potentially going to have a little bit more than $200 million than was expected about a month ago to use as they craft their fiscal year 2026 budget. But the problem is the economy is very shaky, recessions are becoming more likely, and the budget that the governor presented assumes economic growth, and the economy actually shrank in the first quarter of this current year. So a lot of these questions just around federal funding uncertainty and the economy are really just setting up lawmakers for, continuing uncertainty to the point where they're just going to have to pass a budget and hope for the best.
I mean, Ben, that seems like a huge difference from a month ago to have over 2 years, $500 million more dollars available in the budget. I mean, is it fair to say that that could all go away in the next report next month?
Absolutely. It's if the economy changes, we continue to see GDP decline in a future quarter. Certainly, a recession would have a lot of impacts on the state. So these are really just kind of projections. Really, the reason that these revisions were made was because tax revenue from 2024 was really strong for the state of Illinois. But when you certainly look ahead to 2026, that may not be the case. 2025 tax revenue could certainly be impacted by some of these economic concerns we're seeing right now.
Well, one of the big concerns that you and I have talked about before has been higher education. There is a proposal right now to overhaul higher education funding in Illinois. So let's start with what the proposal is. What are lawmakers asking to do?
Yeah, so basically, they want to change how money is going to colleges and universities and make it more on an evidence-based funding model, which is basically what we do right now for K-12 schools in Illinois, where schools with the greatest funding gap and adequacy would receive a greater portion of new funding that's appropriated to higher education each year. So a big problem right now is that a lot of universities just kind of come into the State House, they present their own individual budget request, and lawmakers kind of do something with it. Or the governor this year is proposing a general across the board 3% increase to higher education funding. And this formula would make it a little bit more specific about that universities with a greater need for funding that have a bigger gap between the amount of money that they need and what they're actually getting would get more money, where schools with a smaller gap would end up receiving a little bit less money. And that's kind of where the controversy lays too.
Okay, so quickly, what does the state's largest university think about this plan?
Yeah, the University of Illinois in Champaign specifically, they're pretty opposed to this because under the formula that lawmakers would apply, they're funded at 89% of adequacy. But compare that to Western Illinois, they're at 46%. So that's kind of where the difference is. Some of these other schools are more interested in this, but the big ones that are receiving the money, they do want to keep it in place, the current system.
All right, well, another education issue has to do with community colleges. I mean, in February, Governor Pritzker asked for community colleges to start offering 4-year degrees, but you've got two very powerful state Democrats now at odds over this. What is going on?
Yeah, so during a Senate hearing last week on this bill that we were just talking about higher education funding reform, we heard Senate Majority Leader Kimberly Lightfoot speak out against the bill, that she has concerns that this proposal by Governor Pritzker that would allow more community colleges to provide 4-year degrees could potentially end up taking students away from the big state universities. So she has concerns with that. A lot of Democrats have concerns with that. But of course, Democrat Governor J.B. Pritzker, as well as other Democrats, also are supporting this bill that would, potentially make college more accessible at community colleges and get four-year degrees from those colleges. So it's kind of interesting watching, parts of this party kind of have this public display of, opposition with each other. As this bill is really not moving forward here in the legislature because some people who have concerns, like Senator Lightford, who is concerned that the state universities are not going to benefit from the system, the bill hasn't moved forward because of those concerns. But we see other Democrats are pretty frustrated that the bill hasn't moved forward. So what's going to happen ultimately with this bill is really unclear right now, but we're only about 4 weeks away from wrapping up here in Springfield. And right now, this bill is not really on the table at the moment.
Yeah, it's certainly a bill that would impact a lot of people around this area. We'll keep watching it. Ben, thank you as always for your time today.
Thank you, Shelby.
For you guys at home, if you want to check out any of Capital News Illinois' coverage from Springfield, we made it easy for you. Just click on the As Seen on TV tab at WQAD.com.